Hi everybody. Just give everybody a few minutes to jump on here. Make sure that you guys can see us and hear us okay. When you jump on, can you just let us know that you can hear us okay? That would be super. Facebook is always changing. It looks like it's changed some of the settings today. So when you jump on, can you just let us know that you can hear us? That would be super. Tonight we are talking about what should I look for in a used saddle. We're gonna try to give you guys some tips about what to look for in terms of the actual saddle. Perfect. Brenda, looks like you guys can hear us. Awesome, thank you. We're gonna try to give you some tips in terms of what to look for in a saddle, as well as how to not get scammed. If you have questions as we go along, you are more than welcome to drop them in the comment box, and we'll try to get as many of those as we can live. If we don't get to them live, or if you're watching the replay, then you can definitely leave those questions and we'll come back and try to answer those later. If you have an idea for a future live, another topic or question that you'd like us to answer, you can send that in to us at our email, which is hazekofellph@gmail.com. We will be happy to add that to our list, or we may have done something similar already and I can direct you towards that video so you can get the answers you're looking for. If you are looking for the replay, if you run into a poor connection and you want to catch the replay, then you can try refreshing your screen. The replay will be available later, and the best place to get it is by signing up for our email list, where you will get it delivered right to your inbox on Tuesday mornings, as well as a heads up about what we're talking about that day, and it gives you a chance to reply to that email and let us know what your questions are so we can answer them live. Okay, so we're gonna talk about how to buy a used saddle. If you're new here, my name's Lindsay, this is my husband Jess. We're here every Tuesday at 7:30 answering questions that are sent in by you guys. Today we're talking about how to buy a used saddle, and questions that we got in response to this morning's email were, how is the baby doing? We had a full-born on the weekend. So do you want to answer that?
Baby's doing good. It's jumping around. It's eating.
Baby's good. Mama's good. Yeah, everything's normal and healthy. So we're lucky there. We have 2 more that we're expecting this year. What are we, 3 weeks out on the next one? Ish. And then another few weeks after that for the last one.
No, Josie's is doing like another week.
Oh, is it? 1 week?
And then the chick one is due mid-May.
Next weekend, midway. She's not really doing anything yet, is she?
Nope, she'll be a little bit.
Soon anyways. We're in the thick of it. Okay, so if you guys have questions as we go, definitely let us know. Otherwise, let's get started with what to look for in terms of making sure that you get the right saddle. What are your tips for somebody who wants to buy a used saddle? The person who sent this question in is wanting to buy a reining saddle for their horse that they're doing some reining with, and she would love to buy a new custom saddle, but it's not in the budget right now, so she'd like to find something used. And what are your tips for that?
Tips as far as the saddle goes, or the actual active?
As far as the saddle goes, let's start first with what to look for, how to kind of know what to look for to make sure that you're getting something that will work.
I would say don't rush. Go ride in as many of your friends' saddles. Don't be a pain to your, people that want to sell saddles. Don't sit there and ride in all of them just so you can find one on the internet. But ride in all your friends' saddles and find out what you like and don't like. We don't buy a lot over the internet, but over the years we've bought, I guess they've added up to quite a few. But I think for us it's a little bit different because we know what we like, and we don't have to buy one that's perfect for a horse and a person, because we have to fit them on multiple horses. We have to do multiple jobs with, like, we have multiple people always looking.
Yeah, when we're looking, it's not really like one of us is looking for one saddle that will do everything that will fit one specific horse, right? Chances are it'll work for either us or to give lessons off of, or maybe I'll like it and you won't, or vice versa. But for somebody who's looking specifically for themselves and to fit their horse, you want to do a bunch of ride. You want to ride on a whole bunch and see what it is that you like.
Yeah, I think ride in a whole bunch, figure out what you like. Be, I think another one is ask trainers, ask people who ride in these things all the time. Don't ask people who only ride once in a while. Like, the one thing we get all the time is people will buy cheap brands because their buddies told them it was a good one or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, ask the people that live in these things. You know, and nothing wrong with those cheaper saddles if that's what you're after. You know, I think for the ones that we have some cheaper ones for lesson saddles, but the ones that we ride in definitely aren't the cheaper saddles. They're similar to like Snap-on tools. You buy a better one, they last longer, they hold their value, they're you know, they're easier to sell and buy and whatnot.
Retain their value better.
They definitely retain their value better, and they just last longer. They're way more comfortable while you have them.
Better for the horses, yeah.
If somebody's just wanting to try a discipline, I always say, you know, you can buy a good used one and it's a better investment. You can sell it out at the end if, you know, you decide maybe you want, like, let's say you want to try a cow horse and then you wanted to end up doing the reiners, or you wanted to do something else. If you buy a good used one and got, you know, and then wanted to sell it after, it's always worth its value.
Yeah,
you
you're
gotta know
better
what
to
you're
go.
buying.
You're better to go for a really high quality saddle that's used or even quite beat up than you are to buy something new or newer that's a poor made saddle, for sure.
And you'll sit better in it. You'll enjoy it better.
You'll save yourself some chiropractic work with your horse, or
Or
know,
you.
a kick out and a lead change or whatever. Yeah, or chiropractic for yourself, for sure.
I think the biggest thing is just knowing what you want, knowing.
And then let's say you find something. Let's say you've been riding in a whole bunch. You find something that you really like. Then what?
When you look, for me, if I get on the internet and I start, you know, I look at a whole bunch of used saddle Facebook pages, considered a page ones on Facebook.
Yeah.
And then there's certain tack stores that I know deal in used saddles. Some are kind of off the grid a little bit, but every once in a while they'll have my kind of saddle and stuff. For me, I'm more worried about the ride than the look. If I'm buying used,
Yeah, you're gonna have to
as a work
compromise.
saddle, yeah.
You're not gonna get everything that you like. You're not gonna get the color of oil and the conchos and the tooling and the
and if you do,
know.
bonus, but
yeah.
you know, you have to realistically look around and do some legwork. There's a little tack store in Washington that we've bought a couple saddles from. They don't deal in reining saddles, but they've gotten some trade-ins over the years. You know, it's just a weird one that I just happened upon. And every once in a while, if he gets bobs, I get a message.
Took a chance.
You know,
Yeah.
I think I've bought a Bob's and a Taylor, and I forget what else from him. But the same thing, he knows what I'm looking for. You know, but you got to know, you know, you got to look around. You got to snoop a little bit. If you're going to buy used, you got to.
Now, if you find something that you really like that fits your horse, then the best thing to do would be to find out as much about that saddle as you can. Find out what tree it is in it, what seat is in it, all those kind of details. If it's a Bob's, then you can actually message Bob's Custom Saddles and you can send them the serial number. If you lift up the fender, you can send them the serial number and they'll be able to send you a whole bunch of the specs. And then you can use that when you're looking for another used one. The tree is what fits the horse. So if you find something with a tree that fits your horse, then you can try to find another saddle that fits that tree. However, the tree from maker to maker, even if it has the same name, can be a different tree.
Well, and even like if you're riding a brand and you like it, remember that that brand also makes multiple different trees. They make multiple different types of
Yeah,
saddles.
you can't just say I like this brand, because it could be a different tree, a different seat, a different, a whole bunch of different configurations. Yeah.
I think another thing too, if you're buying used, there's definitely certain brands that I like. Over the years they suit me, but there's some off brands too that maybe aren't real popular. But if you're just trying to an event, but you have to know what they are. You have to do the research with the right people to find out if those saddles.
And they're hard to find. They're not everywhere. They're not at every tack shop. They're not, they are hard to find. Good ones are hard to find.
Usually the ones that are at every tack store are not worth buying.
Yeah.
They're mass produced and they're just not like,
Yeah.
it is what it is. You got to know what you want, and I think that's a big thing. Know your trees, know what makes the saddles,
Know the brand, know the tree that you want, fits your horse. Know what seat you like and what seat size you need. You're not going to want to compromise on seat size, especially you're not going to want to go down in seat size. If anything, you're going to go. You're going to want to go to your ideal seat size, if not something bigger. And if you have a specific saddle that you're riding in that is a certain seat size, it may not be the same to a different brand. It's another thing that we find with, some of the less expensive saddles that people ride in. The seat size it's not the same from brand to brand. It's not the same when you go to a higher quality saddle.
Well, and even different trees, like how that cantle angles and stuff makes such a huge difference.
Okay, so to sum up what you want to look for, you want to try to ride in a whole bunch, you want to try to figure out what it is that you like. You want an event specific saddle. If you're going to try to do reining, then you want to try to get a reining saddle. If you want to do cow horse, you want to try to get something that is at least conducive to riding, to doing some cow horse. You're not going to go for a barrel saddle, obviously, or a pleasure saddle or something like that. Knowing things like the fender length, the horn height, whether you like a hard seat or you prefer a double padded, whether you like rough out, whether you like smooth out, all that kind of stuff is good to know. But you're for sure going to have to compromise on some of those things if you're trying to find something used. So figure out what fits your horse, figure out what fits you, and then be prepared to compromise on how much tooling it has or what silver it has or that kind of thing. As far as finding the saddle and making sure that you don't get scammed, and there's a few different ways that you can get scammed. One is with the price, and the other is with whether the saddle actually gets delivered to you, or whether the saddle gets delivered with a cracked tree or not as represented. There's lots of things that you have to watch out for there. What are your tips as far as that goes?
I think my tips for how to, which you got to know who you're dealing with. If I look somebody up on the internet and I go to their Facebook and they have pictures of them showing an event, showing in that saddle, I have a better feeling about it. I've done it numerous times where we've bought saddles from far away, and I flat out asked them, who their trainer was, who they rode with, and have called some of those trainers who are my friends and said, hey, is this person legit? Is the saddle legit? Is there something wrong? Are the people good to deal with? I'm Dutch. If I'm going to put that kind of money out, I'm going to ask about somebody.
Well, you don't want to get ripped off. You don't want to send money down for a saddle that never gets delivered. And we've had clients that's happened to, even recently.
Well, we've called on some where all of a sudden it got real fishy and we went,
Yeah, you don't want to
the
send
person
money
isn't
down
legit.
ahead of time and then not have a saddle delivered, or send money down and a saddle gets delivered and the tree's cracked. And
the
sometimes
tree's cracked is a big one.
the saddle not getting delivered, that's
Well, that's the
just
biggest
a scam. Yeah, that's just a scam. The tree being cracked or like an actual problem with the functionality of the saddle, that could be somebody intentionally doing that, but it could be somebody who just doesn't know better. And I think that's the other issue that you have to be careful of, is you don't want to just buy it from somebody because they seem nice. They might not know better. And that's another thing that I see all the time, you know, when I'm looking at saddles and stuff online, where I see, you know, somebody saying whatever these specs about this saddle, and I'm looking at the saddle and I'm thinking, that doesn't even match. And it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't think somebody's trying to scam somebody, but somebody doesn't even know what their saddle is. They're not representing it properly. That's the nice thing about...
Well, and some people are flat out liars.
And some people are flat out liars. But, like, I'll see it on there all the time where I'm like, oh, that's, you know, that's obviously not that seat size, you know, or that's obviously not... what did I see the other day? And I was like, oh my gosh, that's not even close to what that is.
Mm-hmm. And I've bought some with broken trees. Because I think the other thing when you're buying used, you need to know what you can fix.
Yeah.
And if I can buy one cheap enough, put a brand new tree in it.
And you know somebody who can do a good job on putting a tree in it.
Well, that's
the
the
other
other
part.
thing. I
Some
mean,
people don't have access to that, right?
do we do a plug for Ernie Wilson and Jeanette? You know,
Sure. Shout out.
you know,
Shout
I
out
don't know
today.
how many fenders and trees and parts. You know, I know what he's gonna, or what him and her, they're gonna charge me. I know what Wilsons are gonna charge me, so I can risk that into, like, a lot of saddles. People have, you know, maybe the fender holes are getting beat up in it or something. Well, you ship it up there and get a new set put on, and you know,
Or
it's
order,
gonna-
you can order new fenders. You can, like, from your saddle maker, you can order new fenders.
right.
Perfect.
And I still think one of the best ones is I went and bought one with a broken tree. Me and my dad were working here at the farm, and it just popped up, and I called the lady, and I said to my dad, it was in Ontario. I said, let's go for a drive. It's either going to be the biggest waste of time or it's going to be the best deal there is. And I laughed because I said to the lady, I said, this, and I mean, it was broke. I mean, it was shattered. As soon as we got in there, I just went, oh man. And I bid her according to what it was worth. And she said, well, I didn't even know it had a broken tree. She says, because I write English. And I thought, baloney, because they have trees in there too. But I knew what it would take to fix. I knew
The value of the saddle that you were buying.
yeah.
It's a very well-made saddle.
And that's one thing that I always question if I buy one over the internet. I ask the people to send me a video of them, and I tell them, grab the back of that seat, grab the horn, try to squish them together and take a video of it. And if it needs new fenders or silver pieces off, I've bought lots of Bobses with, you know, silver
Yeah,
missing.
missing silver concho or silver plate or something, and it's discounted by a lot because it's missing that silver, so somebody doesn't want to go showing it, but you can buy the silver.
Yeah, there is ways. I mean, you know, it's a bit of a pain. You got to do a little legwork.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you can get that silver brought up or the new fenders and all that stuff, especially work saddles. I mean, you know, if I was buying a show saddle and it needed a new tree and all that stuff, well, there's going to be some damage other places. So it might not be a show saddle, but it'd be a great work saddle.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing is you got to, even if getting back to the scam one of the ones I've found more people will, if I feel like it's a scam, I tell them to show me the serial, like on a Bob's, I tell them to show me the serial number underneath, or I tell them I want a really awkward picture of like underneath or to a side, something that if they didn't have the saddle, they would not be able to do.
Yeah.
And I don't do it as a thing of like, I think you're scamming me. I just say, you know, I'm really interested. This is what I'm curious about. Can you please send me this angle? If they have the saddle, they are more than happy to oblige and say, shoot, sure. And
Yeah.
usually it involves, you know, I won't be out at the barn until tomorrow. Is that okay? You know, and I just thank you very much. Gladly wait for it. Thank you very much. And then, you know, right away, the other way you can buy some really good used saddles aside from the internet is horse shows.
Yeah.
You know, the bigger horse shows, you walk around the stall area, you know, and I mean, not just because I'm Dutch, but don't be scared to just if somebody has a price tag on there, know what you are comfortable to give, and just say, hey, would you take this much? And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, you won't insult anybody, and be polite about it, be nice about it. If it's my friends, I don't worry about being polite, but if I'm at a horse show, I mean, lots of times I'll walk up to somebody.
Yeah, a horse show can be a great spot to get a saddle.
Anywhere you get people together, horse people together, and word of mouth. You ask your friends, and then all of a sudden they have a friend maybe that has one for sale, and you can try it. There's, lots of them there, and there's a lot of good, good tack stores that deal in used saddles, where you're buying with a little more confidence because they've went over the trees, they've went over the fenders, they've looked at all the little details. We've bought some at a tack, from. I guess we bought some from, now there are other Bob's dealers that deal in used saddles over the years. I mean, I've never been scared to do that. You pay a little more
buying
because
from a well-known place, I mean, that's the ticket. They're more likely to have checked out the saddle in depth and to know, like we bought a saddle not that long ago, and the dealer said the leather's a little loose, the horn cap is a little bit loose. Like she told us what was wrong with the saddle before we bought it, and why it was priced the way that it was. That's buying from somebody reputable who sells a lot of saddles and knows enough to check to see if the tree is cracked, to check to see if the horn cap's loose, to know that the fenders were actually not original to that saddle. Like that's worth paying a little bit extra for. Mm-hmm. A lot of times too, those people that sell saddles a lot, they know how to ship internationally, which for us in Canada is an issue. A lot of individuals won't even ship internationally.
And know how to ship a saddle safely.
So
wrap the horns with towels, wrap the cantle with bubble wrap. Put it in the right box. Don't mess around with it. Make sure because nothing worse than a ding on one.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing. Like, buy from somebody who you can take the chance on the internet. I mean, I do all the time, but I shouldn't say all the time. But buy from people and...
Yeah, and used saddles, like we obviously sell the custom saddles, the new custom saddles, but used saddles can be a really great deal. Mm-hmm. And it can be a way to get into a custom saddle. Like that's what we've always done was, buy used and then kind of keep trading up, right? You get a used saddle or you have a used saddle now.
Well, or buy a used one and then keep it as a work saddle and someday buy a new saddle.
And then someday buy another one. But buying one, like whatever you have now, let's say you have one that's valued at like $1,500 or something, you don't have to make that big of a jump from a used saddle at $1,500 to a custom one at, $4,000 or $5,000 or whatever. You can trade yours up, get something that's worth $2,000, riding that for a little bit. Then the next time you got a couple $100, then you buy something else, and you kind of keep selling and trading up a little bit until you're in a position to buy exactly what it is that you want. Anything else you want to add? Maybe we should check some of these questions, should we? Oh, I didn't do that right. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Alyssa says, I think that's an often forgotten point that should be emphasized. Look people up. Check for mutual friends. Yeah, a big red flag for me is if somebody's selling a used saddle and they have like a sunrise for their profile pic and they only have like 12 friends. The only thing they have on their page is a saddle for sale. And a lot of times we'll see that like there are a lot of scammers out there. They'll take a picture of a saddle that's for sale and then they'll post it on their page.
And some of it too, like you can look at your mutual friends, but ask your mutual friends too.
Do you know this person?
I know lots of people in the horse world that I wouldn't deal with. Just because they're your Facebook friends doesn't mean you trust them.
Yeah. Nancy's on, and Anita's on, and Lori's on, Susie, Judy. Rose, Brenda, awesome. If anybody has any questions, we will happily answer those, but hopefully this is giving you some ideas if you are in the market for a used saddle. There definitely can be great ones out there. We've got a lot of great ones.
Another hint I
We've
think
had.
too with buying one used from a person, call the person. Don't text them, don't email them. I do that quite often. Sometimes with bits and stuff, I'll just, and what is it? PayPal, not that Friends one, the regular PayPal, where you're guaranteed a little bit. But one of my favorite ones is hey, I'd just like to speak to you for a minute. Here's my number, or can you send me your number? And if they're not willing to answer a phone and talk to me as a voice, if that person picks up and they don't know jack all about horses, you ask them what kind of horse do they ride in this thing. And if they're kind of humming and can't tell you what kind of horses they're riding, maybe it's not a legitimate deal. Or it's somebody's ex-wife or ex-husband sitting in the saddle.
Oh geez, let's not go there.
Okay, a couple
Let's
of
not go
times
there
I might
tonight.
have bought a few that were ex-husbands and wives, but whatever.
Oh, that's how to get a deal. Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of risk with buying something used, but
Stick with reputable
reputable people. Yes.
reputable dealers.
Yeah.
Know what you're buying. And I know everybody loves to ship, but it's just so much better buying in person. Here's cash. I walk out with the saddle.
Yeah, if you can.
Want extra?
If you want
Yeah, I can't-
extra confirmation, you can FaceTime, see the saddle and the person on video.
Right,
Yeah.
you gotta have, to me, it's pictures, it's video.
Yeah.
Talking to them in person, knowing that it's a real person, and the right kind of, to me, if I'm buying a reining saddle and the person has a whole bunch of standardbred pictures up, kind of throws a red flag into me as to why they have this. Not enough that I would say no, but definitely enough where I would question it, and maybe look into it a little more. There's not a lot of tack auction sales anymore. That used to be a neat little spot to buy some, neat bits and neat saddles. You got to go through a lot of junk to find some good ones. There's some used tack sales coming up. There's one over in Imlay City, and I'm not sure. I think maybe I read one that Rusty Gates down there in Elmer has one coming up. I could be wrong. Maybe.
Yeah, they usually have one. Yeah.
I think that's coming
They're
up.
all over the place. The quarter horse ones are really good.
a good
spot
ones
to
like
go.
that sometimes, again, you might walk out with nothing, but those are good places to look for quality. Maybe quality that just isn't in the fad. If you're looking for a used saddle and you just want a working saddle, maybe don't get one that's the fad right
Yeah.
now.
The other thing that I just thought of is the other thing I'm seeing is people asking for too much for their used saddles. You need to know, we're kind of talking about the other end of it, but I see a lot of people asking too much for a used saddle where you could buy brand new custom for what they're asking for a used saddle.
Yeah, the market's gone crazy.
The market's unreal and people are just throwing numbers out. There's people asking ridiculous amounts of money for used saddles.
Know what you can sell it for when you're done.
You gotta know.
Trophy saddles do not sell near as well. So if you're looking for a work saddle that you're not going to try to sell, that's one thing. But I always look at it as you got to get out on this thing eventually, or you're going to trade it or something.
Yeah.
And let's say a good used work saddle, but that's a trophy saddle, is going to be a fair bit cheaper. But if you want to stay cheaper, go to a trophy saddle.
Yeah.
But also know that you're not going to get as much when you go to trade that in,
Yeah.
you know, later on down the road.
Another one is silver. Like there's a lot of older show saddles that have a bunch of silver on them that people don't really want to buy now because they're not super trendy, but you can get for a really good deal, you know, if you don't mind going with something that's a little bit older.
Yeah, it's at a fad. Rip the silver off, use it as a work saddle.
Alyssa's saying goods and services, the PayPal. Oh, and Venmo has a similar one now. That's
Goods and services.
good to know.
instead of-
Karen's saying, I went through a dozen saddles in the last few years. Each one had something I liked and something I didn't so that I could figure out my dream saddle. I've had 2 broken trees sold to me, both bought secondhand in tack stores. I buy only quality name brands so that if they don't work, I can get back what I bought them for. Because I bought them, I had time to really try them out. Yeah, that has been a great strategy. I think it's too bad that you got sold 2 broken trees, but that has been a really good strategy for you, Karen. Daphne, for a used reining saddle that's a good brand, what would be a price range?
Well, I mean, we're a little impartial to the Bobs.
We're pretty impartial to the Bobs, yeah.
You know, Clayburns are a good value. They're actually a really good
They're a
value
good
buying
value.
used because they're not super popular. They're nice saddles. Well, Clayburn was Cowboy Central, and all them guys were kind of together for a few years. Tailors, like there's some that aren't maybe as expensive as the Bobses, but are still all right. We have some used pards that we all, you know, some of those, the advantages are pretty nice saddles. The versatility is a little cheaper. You just got to know what they are. Like even you take the pards as, if somebody says I have a pards, what's it worth? Well, is it in a, like the lines of them, like the advantages are more expensive and well worth the extra money. The versatilities are a little cheaper. What you want.
Yeah. At least 15
You know,
to
Bobs
25.
are going to be 2+ for work saddles. You know, some of the cheaper ones like the Tailors, the Pards, the ones like that, you can get in a little cheaper. But sticking to those, like somebody put on there about sticking with the name brands, that's for sure. When you go to sell them, they're still worth it.
Yeah, if you buy a used Bob's, like an older used Bob's, you can ride in it for a few years and you can sell it for what you paid for it. You know, we have somebody trading one in. Did I tell you this? I think I did. Somebody trading one in, or I don't know if she's going to trade it into us or if she's going to just sell it on her own actually, but she's buying a new saddle, buying a new custom saddle, and she's going to sell her old Bob's. It's a 1988 and it's still in great shape. So that's cool. I don't know what it would have been worth in 1988, but Sarah, I practically stole my Bob Avila because it's 20 years old and a round skirt, so it wasn't in style. Yeah, I have one like that, or I guess I have sold it now, but I had one like that too, Sarah, that was a round skirt and a lighter oil, decked out in silver, gorgeous saddle, but somebody was upgrading to something new with a square skirt and didn't want it anymore.
For years, I used to buy old show saddles that were out of style. The silver was so dinged up, like just anything that had happened. And I'd rip all the silver off.
Yeah.
Use it as work saddles because I couldn't afford a regular work saddle. And you could buy that cheaper because it was out of,
Yeah.
you know, it wasn't in style. And actually, I was up in the top of the tin barn and there was an old thing and there's some
Some old Harris silver.
Harris silver
Oh,
and some
geez.
broken old silver. And I was kind of laughing at all the
Somebody-
different kinds of silver up there.
Oh my gosh. Alyssa, have you found there to be any sort of depreciation rule of thumb for a saddle per
Not the good
year,
ones.
for example? Definitely not per year, more how dinged up or how well used it is, I think.
I think if I ride in them, they depreciate.
You depreciate a saddle pretty quick. That's why we have to go with the very high quality saddles. You're very expensive.
Because my wife's hard on them.
You're a very expensive person to have around. Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of things about used saddles there. Hopefully this has given you guys somewhere to start if you're in the market for a used saddle. And if you're considering doing a custom saddle, don't hesitate to reach out to see what the price would be and kind of what's possible. One of the things I'm always amazed at with, the custom saddles and stuff is that people don't realize what is even possible to do with a custom saddle. So don't hesitate to reach out. I don't mind going through that stuff and kind of telling you guys what it would be, what are the different things that we could look at and what the price point would be. And then when you're looking, if you decide to look at, some used saddles, if it's out of your price range to go with a new one, look at used saddles, knowing that, you're gonna buy one to keep as a work saddle and you're gonna buy a new one later or whatever, right? Don't hesitate to ask myself or a dealer what your price range would kind of be on a new one, because I think that's a good thing to have in the back of your head when you're shopping around.
Especially if you're shopping used, you got to know what the new ones are worth.
You got to know what a new one is worth so that you don't go pay for a used saddle what you could buy a brand new custom one with all of the custom options to fit you and your horse.
2022, or I guess 2021 especially, but 2022, we've seen that a lot on the internet where you think, man, people want a fortune for their stuff.
Or even how close it is. Like, people want so much money for it, and it's like, yeah, you could, that's a little less than, but like for $700 or, maybe even $1,000,
get everything you want.
You get everything you want. It's going to fit you. It's going to fit your horse. You get, the horn you want, the fenders cut right to match your inseam. You get the front end, the cannel, the tooling, the conchos, you get all that stuff you want. Yeah, don't hesitate to reach out and find out what a new one is worth, I think is important. I have a beautiful Bailey Western saddle, tag 124, who I bought from the original owner 25 years ago. He bought brand new for $5,000. He bought brand new 25 years ago for $5,000. And it's still in mint condition and fits my horse to a T. And she's saying I paid $750 4 years ago. Well, that's a heck of a depreciation, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Well, that's great that you got something that fits your horse. That's a lot of depreciation. I would say most of the time it's the other way. For the high quality saddles, it's probably the other way around. Like that saddle that, we have a client who bought a brand new saddle in 2015, custom saddle, 2015. And the saddle that he bought, the exact same model, is selling online used for what he paid for it new. That's a Bob's, obviously, that's a Bob's saddle. So,
when buying used, and I think that's one of the things though, you got to know which brands are popular.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes the people that, nice saddles, but maybe it's a person that made them and, nobody outside of, and I think that's what happens with those ones is nobody outside of this area knows them. Mm-hmm. Well, then you're limiting yourself when you try to sell them. So, when you start trying to find one that you really like or what discipline do you want, you really have to, it's great to know what you're paying for it, but you better know what you can get for it. Mm-hmm. How do you sell it? Mm-hmm.
How do you measure fenders, and how do you determine what length fender fits what length inseam?
You can measure them just, whatever, the regular inseam of your jeans, the same as you would, your clothes. And then the easiest way to do it on your saddles is you measure from the center of your seat down to where your stirrup is. A lot of saddle companies do not alter their fenders.
Or they have like two different sizes, like youth and adult, or youth and standard, or...
And Fenders is a big one that we order that are all different lengths. I mean, you know,
What we do
They
with
gotta
the bobs is we have a conversion chart. So once we know what your inseam is, then we just look at the conversion chart and we can tell what length fender we need to order.
they know how many inches it's going to be.
And then it gets cut so that there are just as many holes above where you would measure as there are holes below. So you ride on the middle hole. So some people try to fudge their inseam and make their leg seem longer, but there's no sense in doing that because you're still going to be able to ride long, and somebody who's a little taller than you is still going to be able to ride in your saddle, and somebody who's a little shorter than you is still going to be able to ride in your saddle. But
I think the biggest thing for the
A
short
standard-
people is where that dang Belvin's buckle is.
yeah,
You know, where all that stuff sits in there. Is there a lot of bulk
Oh.
under your thigh? There's
where
just
the
so much to
D-ring
that
is.
stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot. What was I going to say about
And if you
fender
find the
length?
saddle you love, but the fenders ain't right, just buy a new pair of
Just
fenders.
order new fenders, yeah.
You know what you can alter for a decent price.
I was going to say something else about that and I forget.
Sorry.
Yeah, lost it. It's gone now. Oh, I know what I was going to say. A standard length is 17.5 inches from the top of the fender down to the bottom of the fender. And then what's considered a youth fender is usually 14 and a half or 15. But that size, I have lots of ladies that ride in that length.
Lacey, you in it here? Oh. Try it
Lacey,
sometime,
I can't
Lacey. It might
imagine
be
riding,
comfortable.
riding in the middle hole. It's amazing. I can't believe the difference that it makes to ride in.
Most people don't know you can do it.
Most people don't even know, and I'm tall, I'm long-legged, and so it doesn't affect me nearly as much as it does somebody who's, maybe shorter. Like my inseam is like a 34, 35. I'm 5'9", so somebody who's shorter than I am is gonna have.
Yeah, but how many times do we give lessons and somebody's trying to jam themselves in a saddle? It does not fit.
Well, that's why I have a lot of cheap lesson saddles, because the fenders go shorter. Yeah. Okay, I think we've covered it. Thanks for being here with us tonight, you guys. If you're just jumping on now, hopefully you can watch the replay, get some of these answers to these questions. If you have more questions, leave them for us in the comment box. We are getting close to the second quarter of 2022. So we are due for a Cut the Chaos Challenge to be intentional about our goals for second quarter. Let me know if you're interested in doing that, and I will make sure that you get into that group. We will open that up in the next couple of weeks. I'll set the date for that, open that up, get you guys in, guide you through 5 days of being intentional about the next quarter, at least the next quarter, maybe even the rest of the year. Anything else you want to say? That's it for
I'm
tonight. Thanks for sending in your questions. If you have further questions, email them into us at hayescofelph@gmail.com. If you have questions about anything that happened tonight, you have questions about custom saddles, you have questions about any of the tack that we have, if you have any questions about the clinics that we have going on, we have 2 spots left right now in our reining clinic for April 30th and May 1st. And we will have a ranch riding and a ranch trail clinic available next week. It will come out on our email list next week on Tuesday, so keep your heads up for that. There's one more spot in our equitation clinic. We had 3 equitation clinics we booked. There's one more spot in our clinic for May 6th. It's a Friday evening. May 6th? Yeah. Friday evening from 6 till 7:30. And that is with me. We're doing equitation exercises for an hour and a half, kicking your butt into shape for this year. That information is all available on our shop. So if you go to our website and then along the top you select shop, you'll find all of the information about those clinics that are available. Thanks for being here with us tonight. You guys, hope that helped answer some questions about saddles, and we will see you next week. Are you going to ask me what we're talking about next week?
Do you want me to?
Usually I don't, but I actually know what we're going to talk about.
What are we
next
going to
week.
talk about,
Next
dear?
week
If you
we're
want me to lead you into this.
set me up for success instead of failure. Next week we're going to talk about hoof care for spring specifically. Kathy had some questions about hoof care. I've got a whole list.
A whole list.
I got a whole list. She had a lot of questions, but I'm going to narrow it down to spring hoof care so that we can go in depth about what to do right now for your horses.
Sounds good. I look forward to listening to that.
You look forward to listening to that? I can't wait to give it. Okay. Thanks, you guys. Have a good night.
Have a good night.